Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Isabella and I make videos on interior design and sometimes little chatty catch-ups about my life. If you're not new here, then those things are still true. So in today's video, I wanted to talk about AI generated images of interior design, especially this one particular image that I've been seeing all over my Pinterest and is honestly an image that I really liked when I first saw it until I realized that it was AI generated. So for those of you who aren't as vehemently against AI as I am, for background context, I did my master's in AI ethics. I work in AI governance. I used to work in trust and safety at an AI tech company. And if you know me in real life, you know that I'm quite anti-AI, generative AI specifically. And a lot of these images are problematic for a number of reasons. Although I will say that on interior design YouTube, I do notice that whenever some of the bigger creators that I follow use AI generated images, their comments tend to be quite unhappy with them. So I might be preaching to the choir a little bit here. But if you want like a very, very quick rundown of why I think these images are problematic, first is the environmental harms that AI causes. So as I'm sure you know, with the rise of generative AI, there's been a huge increase in the number of data centers that need to be built, and this uses a lot more energy and electricity. There are plenty of towns and cities that no longer have as much access to electricity, no longer have as much access to clean water because they are all being used for data centers. Additionally, in cities where coal plants or non-renewable energy sites were initially going to be shut down, they have now reopened or stayed open in order to fuel these data centers, which causes things like respiratory disease to the people who live in that area, alongside all of the other problems that come with excess energy use, such as global warming, climate change, etc. Another problem with this is that with image generation in particular, there needs to be data labelers who label pretty problematic images to ensure that these AI models aren't able to generate harmful or toxic output. So this is usually data labelers in countries in the global south, Kenya and Venezuela being the ones that are often reported on. And basically they have to look through hundreds and hundreds of images and videos of people being beheaded, of people being subject to abuse and violence, to things like bestiality, child abuse, etc., in order to label these images for big companies like Meta and OpenAI. And so every time you use an image generation tool, just know that there are human people behind it who are making sure that it's safe for you, even though their working environment isn't safe for them. And finally, from the perspective of creative industries, these designs come from somewhere. AI doesn't have the ability to create images from scratch. It is creating images based on training data that it is fed. And so the training data that these types of images are based off of are other work by interior designers. And instead of clients going to them or having credit for their work or their work getting popular, instead it is being stolen and utilized by AI to generate slop content. So that is my very, very, very quick rundown of why AI in interior design is problematic. Again, I think most of the people on YouTube who would watch the types of videos I make already share this opinion, but just in case you are confused as to why everyone is unhappy when someone uses AI in their video, then that is why. I could talk for hours and hours about why I think AI is problematic. Like, there are so many other reasons. If you're interested, I'll link both my AI ethics YouTube channel and my Substack below where I talk about these things, but that is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to talk about this particular image. Let me move to the side so I can put it up on the screen. This particular image that I have seen all over my Pinterest. And when I first saw it, I didn't realize that it was AI generated. There was something that I thought was off about it, but then I was like, maybe I'm just crazy. But if you take a look closer, it is very obviously AI generated. I think the most obvious place is on the sofa, where the cushion on the side sort of leads into the couch in a way that doesn't make sense. Like, it looks like a bed pillow has been placed against the sofa, but it's also somehow connected to the seat of the sofa. The other way that it doesn't make sense is if you look at the arm of the sofa, the white stripe doesn't correspond with the rest of the fabric, and it looks like it's open, like a cover for the sofa has been unzipped, which also doesn't really make sense. The other way that this is particularly obvious is if you look at the frames of the paintings or the art that's in this photo. The frames are really inconsistent in a way that a normal frame wouldn't be. Like, it doesn't look properly connected, and one side of the frames are a lot thicker than the other side of the frames, or the art leads directly into the shelf with no shadow behind it or no bottom part of the frame, which is also not how things would work in real life. So if you are unsure whether an image is AI generated and there's art in it, I would definitely look at the frames as the first thing, because from my experience, I don't think that a lot of these AI models are very good at generating consistent frames for art. And I would also look at the way that furniture connects to one another. It's very obvious in this picture with the sofa, but the coffee table also looks kind of weird in the way that it's connected. I don't think that I would have noticed that if I didn't realize the rest of the image was AI generated, but it is something to look out for if you also do not want to support slop content. So now on to why I think this image has been all over my Pinterest, and I've seen it reposted on Instagram, I've seen it be reposted on TikTok, and so I think it's not just me who thinks that this image is aesthetically pleasing until you realize all these other things about it. So the first is that I've noticed this big trend of art being placed in front of books on a bookshelf. And I think that the reason people really like this is because it creates a very layered and eclectic and personal look. I personally don't put art in front of my books because I like to be able to access my books as easily as possible, but I know that some people have books not just for the reading element, but also for the collecting and aesthetic element. So if you don't think that you're going to be accessing or rereading your books that much, then I do think a good way to introduce some interesting design is to either stand paintings up against the books, which I think is more risky and I wouldn't really do that, or what I've seen more recently is to nail or hang paintings on the shelf itself. I went to this exhibition at the Chelsea Design Harbor, I think it's called, and that my boyfriend very kindly got us tickets to. And I saw this a lot in the designs done by the designers there. I'll put a picture on the screen. And I think that, yeah, it just makes a room look very homey, look very curated, and I think that that's part of the reason why this image appeals to so many people. Another reason that I think this image might appeal to a lot of people is because it is full of color and full of pattern. I think obviously everyone on the internet is very against millennial gray at the moment, but I think we're also seeing this pushback to things like dopamine decor, which maybe uses a lot more pastel or bright colors. We're seeing a pushback against mid-century modern, which has been very popular, which I think has, you know, a lot of browns, a lot of blacks, a lot more sort of earthy tones. And I don't think we've seen as big of a trend cycle for this kind of eclectic decor. And I think that these are colors that look very nice together. Like, you have the warm earthy tones of the sort of terracotta tile floor with the rug, and then you have the green in the coffee table, the light wood in the coffee table, the red and white stripes on the sofa, and the green wallpaper. And I think that people like seeing these different colors, and I think it evolutionarily makes sense. I'm not a scientist, so this could be a complete BS, but I think that we are accustomed to seeing these types of colors in nature, and so it's aesthetically pleasing to us to see them combined and in the home. I also think that having a clear color palette is a really important thing to have consistent throughout a room. There's obviously lots of different colors in this room, but it's very consistent and the colors aren't clashing with one another. You can see the green repeated in the art, in the coffee table, in the wallpaper. You can see the red orangey tones repeated in the sofa, in the floor, in the rug, and in some of the art as well. I think that you can use as many colors as you want, but making sure that they are repeated throughout the space makes it seem intentional rather than you're just trying to add a pop of color for no reason. I think the use of pattern here is especially strong because the stripes are quite thin and narrow, which are contrasted with the bigger, bolder, chunkier green in the wallpaper. And although this is AI generated, I think that you can take a lot of lessons from this about the way that patterns should be combined. I think that it's completely fine to combine different patterns and clash patterns, but the thing that you need to remember is to ensure that they are different in terms of scale. So you could have a design with small stripes like in this, but with big flower patterns. Or if you want a small floral pattern, then sort of bolder gingham patterns would look nice. I think the other reason that this photo has become so popular is because it's fun. Like if you look at the lamp, it's a head or a bust statue that is connected to a lampshade, which is sort of something different and unusual. It's not the IKEA modern lamp style with like the donut lamp or these like rice paper lamps that are very Japandi inspired with like light diffused in a certain way with an orange bulb inside that I think has been very trendy, but it's also not the very traditional lamp style. It's something that's quirky and different. I think that plus the art that's on the bookshelf is just fun. Like, again, the art doesn't really make sense if you look at it closely because it's AI generated, but there are lots of interesting shapes that are quite organic. There's elements of nature in the images. There's elements of, I think, a figure. I assume it's intended to be a figure. There's more abstract elements. There's lots of different colors within the art. There's lots of different types of frames. And I think that that makes the image fun and exciting. And it doesn't look so curated. I think we've seen a lot, especially with like celebrity tours, if you look at something like Architectural Digest, where everything is in a very specific place and is, you know, very modern, clean, white lines. And this is just like fun and interesting. And if this was real art and real books, you would probably be able to see some of the owner or the designer's personality come through in this image. And I think people are attracted to things that feel human, ironically, and things that feel real and authentic. And I think having lots of books and lots of art and plants and all these different elements make this image very attractive. I think that's similarly how I feel about the singular green cushion on the sofa. I think sometimes when you see styled furniture, it's like you have to have 7 different throw cushions and you have to have a throw blanket, but it has to be folded in the right way, and you have to make sure that your sofa looks a certain way with the pillows plumped a certain way. Whereas in this image, I like that there's just one singular cushion. I think the messed up part of the sofa arm is probably supposed to be another cushion that somehow got connected to the couch, but I think it's kind of just nice to see in the frame just this one singular cushion that stands out against the sofa, but again ties into the rest of the green in the space. So I'm not saying that I'm pro this AI image, as you could tell from my rant, and I'm not saying that we should make more AI generated images for us to get inspiration from. What I am saying is, because this picture is an amalgamation of lots of different design that it's been trained on, we can obviously still learn lessons from it that we can apply to our own interior design, about mixing colors, about mixing patterns, about bringing personality in and making a room seem interesting without buying a million different things. Like most people, if you are a reader, probably have some books. You can see mine in the background. On this side table, there's like 2 coffee table books. I did see a lot of people on Pinterest being like, this is how you know it's AI generated, because it says Manet. I think that's Manet. I don't know. I'll look it up because I'm probably butchering it, instead of Monet, but both of those are 2 different artists. And so I don't think that that's an AI mistake. But anyway, you could easily find 2 coffee table books and then the rest is just books and art. Like, it doesn't really feel inaccessible in terms of decor, and none of the art is like absolutely massive. A lot of it is small scale, which will be cheaper and more accessible to people. And so I think that while it's important to follow real designers, and I would never promote AI generated images over actual design images, I think that this can help serve as a jumping off point for you to look at actual real human designers. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please make sure to give it a thumbs up. I would love to hear in the comments what you think about AI generated design, if you think that we should just ignore it completely and I shouldn't make videos on these images anymore, or if you think, yes, there's something interesting to learn, but in general, we don't want to proliferate the internet with this kind of content. Or if you feel entirely different and for some reason you're pro AI generated content. I doubt it, but we'll see. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Thank you for watching.